What we have here is a Spyderco Native Chief. This is exclusive through Cutlery Shop. You can still get this right now. It is middle of June 2021. And yeah, this knife is a nice knife. It is made in USA, Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. This blade length is 4.1 inches. The handle length is 5 inches, and the total length when it's open is 9.1 inches. Uses the lock back design. And yeah, this is a very nice knife. It's a very long knife, as you can see. It is not too hefty or bulky though, so it is actually pretty carryable for the length. And also it does have a very nice weight to length ratio. I believe people like to see like a 1-to-1 or less for the blade length to the weight. So with a 4.1 inch blade, the weight of this guy is 4.1 ounces. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. That's good. That's great. That's excellent. I think it actually is advertised as 4 ounces, so mine's just 1/10 of an ounce heavier than what it's advertised as. Maybe wrong on that, but that's not a big deal. I mean, I believe the variables in the weight from what's advertised might be kind of based off how much material they take off when they're grinding and putting the edge on it. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's I'd rather see a slightly heavier than advertised, because if it was less, that would mean they took off too much material. But anyways, this knife is native. It's part of the Native series. The Native series is a series of different knives that Spyderco is kind of like a class of knives, and what defines that class is basically it doesn't have a ramp or a hump. They're gonna all have like a very neutral, smooth handle design and ergonomics at the top, whereas most Spydercos with the hole, I think almost all of them have the hole. Not all of them do actually. There might be some that don't, but 99% of Spydercos have the Spidey hole. So, and most of them have a hump where the spider hole is. And what happens is that hump, it makes a ramp, which is good. And in some cases, it also is a hot spot. So this kind of eliminates that ramp, and it makes it also eliminate the hot spot if there was going to be one. So it's just a different kind of design that they have. They have a couple of popular models. The Shaman, which I do have the Shaman. It's very popular. It's a large knife. There's Native 5, which this is kind of based off the Native 5. It looks very similar, designed very similarly, just longer. It's about an inch longer blade and handle. You know, the Native 5 has a 3-inch blade. This has a 4.1 inch blade. Actually, it is pretty much the Native 5, same height, just longer. And it does not have the swedge on the blade as well like the Native 5 does. But anyways, this lock back is nice and smooth. The centering has been perfect. I haven't messed with trying to recenter it. It's been perfect since I got it, so I'm very happy with that. This version right now with the black DLC also has blacked out hardware, blacked out backlock, blacked out spacer, DLC pocket clip, and yeah, the only thing that's silver other than the edge itself is the spring in there. And actually, now that I've had this for about a month or more, and I've opened and closed it a whole bunch of times, this tang of the blade, that rounded section, was DLC, but now the DLC is coming off of it because that backlock rides rides against the tang of the blade right there when you're opening and closing it, which also allows for some resistance. You know, it's not really a free spinning blade when you're like, it's not a drop sheddy blade, you know, it's a backlock. And the only backlocks sort of design blades that are a little kind of falsetty are the Triadlock ones from Cold Steel. I think because it kind of puts more distance between the backlock and the tang of the blade. But anyways, we're getting off topic here. I've been pretty happy with this knife. It has the factory edge on it. Factory edge. I've only stropped it very, very slightly since I've owned it, and yeah, this edge has been great. I haven't had to resharpen it. This is a full flat grind blade. Very, very pokey, pointy. I actually did stab myself, I kind of have a scar there. It went in super deep, and I don't know what I did. I think it had to do with closing it, and it kind of, my hand slipped. But yeah, that was a very, very deep little poke I got there from this guy. But definitely not something with the design. That was just my fault. That was my bad. So it's all healed up now though. But yeah, you can see yeah, centering is perfect. Actually, when it's closed, it's so solid, the blade barely moves around in there when it's closed. And obviously when it's opened, it's locked up. There's no blade play at all. I did notice ever so slightly when it's open like this, if I push up, it feels like the back lock is kind of wanting to move ever so slightly. It's so minor you wouldn't notice it. But yeah, I don't know if it just needs a tightening of the pivot. But yeah, this knife so far, overall, it's been pretty darn good. Blade stock is 0.125 inches or 3.2 millimeters, so it's very similar to like the Manix 2 for the blade stock, how thick that blade is. And the handled G10 materials are nice and thick. This, I believe it's the same thickness as a Paramilitary 2, and but then the blade stock is thinner, so that means the G10 is thicker. So if we were to put this up to Paramilitary 2, you can see there, yeah, it's the same thickness, if not maybe slightly even thicker than a Paramilitary 2. I don't know if you can see that. It does seem like it is actually even a little bit thicker than a Paramilitary 2, by maybe just a hair. But yeah, the G10 is clearly thicker. Now it doesn't have liners in there. They're just slabs of G10, which is fine because of how thick the G10 is. There is no flex in that at all. This is a solid construction right here. And in addition, with how thick the G10, it does have like a fully closed, you know, it's got this long spacer back here with the back lock, which I'm sure helps reinforce how secure this thing is. This thing feels like a brick. And I do really like the nice touch on the handles right here, how they're cut out right there, because the Paramilitary 2 does not have those cutouts. You know, it's boxy around the corner, and that's the first thing I noticed about a Paramilitary 2 when I handled it, is how boxy it feels. And I really like on the Native Chief, which is also has the same thing on the Native 5. It has these cutouts in the handle material, which makes a huge difference in my opinion, because it feels very comfortable in the hand. Definitely much more comfortable than a Paramilitary 2 in my opinion. Everything from the forward choil, and you know, it doesn't have the ramp. It's nice and smooth ergonomics up there, and those cutouts really make this knife a super ergonomic knife. It is fairly long knife, not very large. It's just long, but because it is only 4 ounces, it actually is a very carryable knife. So this would be a good EDC option for my personal use. In my opinion, I do find myself carrying it. Actually, carried it more than the Paramilitary 2, and yeah, it doesn't feel any bigger. Actually, it does not have as awkward as a carry profile, I think, because it doesn't have the ramp that this has. The ramp really sticks out in your pocket, and yeah, you can see it's a little bit longer closed, but it doesn't have that hump right there, you know. Anyways, one thing I will note here is that you'll see the tip when it's closed is pretty darn close up there, which means that when you start sharpening this, it's going to take a long time, but eventually when you sharpened it and taken off a lot of material, the tip might start poking out of there when it's closed, which I don't like that. That's one, I think that's kind of a design flaw with some of the knives that are coming out. You really want to get that tip in there deep, and I can see it's a back lock, so there's not as much space in there as like a compression lock, you know, to fit the blade in there and tuck it in. But I really wish it would have been set in a little bit deeper, Although I will say it'll probably take years and years and years of sharpening and using to get that much material off of the blade where it starts poking out. But you can see on this paramilitary 2, it's never going to have that issue. It's set in there nice and deep, and no matter how much you sharpen this knife, it's not going to be, the edge isn't going to be poking out when it's closed because it's just so deep in there. And you can see that swell at the base is probably what helps with that, because this does not have that swell at the base, which it does help it kind of be a little bit more carryable, but I don't know. Yeah, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks.